Okay everyone, I need to tell you about the most insane story that literally changed my entire perspective on faith. This story will have you questioning everything you thought you knew about the Bible. Because what do they teach you in Sunday school? That's not what actually happened. We're talking about Daniel in the lion's den. But I'm about to blow your mind with what really went down. So here's the thing, you've probably heard this story a million times. Daniel was brave, he prayed to God, God saved him from lions, the end. But guys, that's like reading the Spark Notes version of a Netflix series. The real story is way more intense than a peaceful God protected him narrative. We're talking betrayal, political intrigue, psychological warfare, and a faith so unshakable it literally made an entire empire question their gods. And here's what they don't tell you, this wasn't just about Daniel. This was about nothing less than the future of monotheism itself. So imagine this, you're 80 years old, you've served the government for 70 years, you're literally the most trusted person in the kingdom. You're living your best life as the head administrator, when suddenly, plot twist, a bunch of jealous politicians decide they want you gone. Not because you did anything wrong. Not because you were corrupt. Just because you were too successful. Too respected. Too blessed. Sound familiar? Well, buckle up, because what happens next is about to change how you think about courage, faith, and standing up for what you believe in, no matter the cost. Let me paint you a picture of Daniel. This guy was not who you'd expect to become the most powerful person in ancient Babylon. Think about it, he was literally taken as a teenager from his home, thrown into exile, forced to serve foreign rulers. But here's what made him special, every single time he was put in a leadership position, he absolutely crushed it. The guy was so good at managing resources that he literally rose to become the chief administrator, like the Secretary of State of Babylon. Picture this, you're 80 years old, you've got this incredible reputation, you're about to retire in style, living your absolute best life in the palace. But here's where it gets interesting. There's this group of government officials, let's call them the Envious 11, and they are absolutely fuming with jealousy. They can't stand how much the king trusts Daniel. And these weren't just random people, these were the cream of the crop, the most elite officials in the kingdom. The kind of people who had their own security teams, their own networks, their own influence. So what do? They start watching Daniel like hawks, waiting for him to slip up. And I mean, these guys are professional investigators at this point. And here's what they discovered, and this is the kicker, Daniel was literally the most incorruptible person they'd ever seen. This guy was so honest, so loyal, so genuinely good that it literally made them sick. So they had to get creative. They couldn't catch him doing anything wrong, so they had to make him do something wrong. Okay, so here's what they do, and I want you to pay attention to how twisted this is. They approach the king and say something like this, "Oh great King Darius, you're so wise and powerful, but there's just one thing missing in your reign. You should pass a law that for the next 30 days, everyone can only pray to you. Just you. Because you're so awesome." Sound familiar? This is literally ancient psychological warfare. Flattery mixed with manipulation. And here's the genius part, they made it specifically about Daniel. Because they knew Daniel would never worship anyone except his God. This wasn't a general law, this was a target-specific trap aimed directly at Daniel. Picture this, you're 80 years old. You've lived a perfect life. You're about to enjoy your golden years. And suddenly, these politicians force you to make an impossible choice, bow down to the king or face the consequences. And trust me, those consequences were not pretty. Picture yourself in Daniel's position. You've got this law, it's literally signed, sealed, and enacted. Pray to anyone except King Darius for 30 days, and you're getting thrown to the lions. Tomorrow. And this isn't like, oh, we'll see what happens. No, this is the law. The ultimate law. Break it and you're literally signing your death warrant. So what does Daniel do? Does he pray in secret? Does he go underground? Does he find some loophole? Nope. This man does the most Daniel thing possible. He goes to his window 3 times a day, kneels down, and prays to his God. Loudly. In public. Where everyone can see him. Now here's what I love about this: Daniel wasn't trying to be a martyr. He wasn't trying to make a political statement. He was just doing what he'd done for 70 years, every single day, without fail. Prayer wasn't something he did when convenient, it was literally who he was. And guess what happens next? The envious 11 are watching. They're waiting. The moment Daniel finishes his prayer, boom, they rush to the king. "Your Majesty! We caught someone breaking your law. It was Daniel. We saw him with our own eyes. We have witnesses. The law is clear, throw him to the lions." And here's the tragedy: the king realizes he's been tricked. He literally has to watch his most trusted advisor get thrown to his death because of a law he signed. Picture this: you're the king. You've been manipulated into signing a law that you didn't really want. Your best advisor is about to die, and you have to order it. You're literally watching the best person you've ever known get destroyed by your own stupidity. So they throw Daniel into the lion's den. And guys, this wasn't some cute little petting zoo lion's den. This was an actual death trap, literally a cave full of hungry, aggressive lions who hadn't eaten in days. Now here's what the storybooks don't tell you: the king was so disturbed by this that he didn't eat that night. He couldn't sleep. He was literally pacing his palace, knowing that his most trusted advisor was about to be torn apart by wild animals. Meanwhile, Daniel is down there in the dark, surrounded by creatures that could kill him in seconds. What do you think was going through his mind? Fear? Absolutely. Doubt? Maybe. But here's what I think was really happening: this man had spent 70 years building an unshakable relationship with God. When you've got that kind of foundation, even facing death becomes just another Tuesday. Now here's what I find fascinating about this whole story: the text says Daniel spent the night with the lions. Not survived the night or made it through the night, he spent the night there. Like, he was actually there, in the dark, with these wild animals. 4 hours. And what does he do? Does he scream for help? Does he try to fight them? Does he even try to make himself smaller or less threatening? No. The text says he went to sleep. Guys. This man went to sleep in a lion's den. That's not just faith, that's the kind of peace that only comes from knowing, without a shadow of a doubt, that your life is in God's hands. Can you imagine? Being 80 years old, facing what should be certain death, and just resting in the presence of God? That level of peace doesn't come from positive thinking or wishful thinking. That comes from a lifetime of proven trust. So dawn breaks. The king can't wait. He runs to the lion's den, probably expecting to find, well, you know, evidence that Daniel didn't make it. And what does he see when he looks down? Daniel is alive. Not just alive, he's sitting there, probably has this huge smile on his face, maybe even looks more rested than usual. And the lions? They're just hanging out. Like they're old friends. The king actually has to ask Daniel, "Are you okay? Did the lions hurt you?" And Daniel basically shrugs and says something like, "Yeah, I'm fine. Your Majesty sent an angel to shut the lions' mouths." An angel. Guys. This wasn't just divine intervention, this was a full-on supernatural encounter that modern skeptics can't explain away. But here's where it gets really good, and this is why I love this story so much. The king doesn't just let Daniel go. No, this man is pissed. He realizes he's been played by these politicians, and now it's time for payback. He orders the envious 11, and their entire families, to be thrown into the lion's den. Now think about that: the very trap they set for Daniel becomes their own destruction. The very law they manipulated the king into passing becomes their execution order. And here's the beautiful irony: these men who orchestrated Daniel's supposed death instead get to meet the same lions that didn't hurt Daniel. Sometimes justice really is that poetic. But the real miracle wasn't the lions. The real miracle was what happened next. This entire story gets documented and circulated throughout the entire Persian Empire. Every province, every governor, every official hears about this God who can send angels to shut lions' mouths. And here's the thing: this wasn't just about Daniel anymore. This story literally changed the religious landscape of the ancient world. Weeks later, the Persian king writes a decree to every person in his empire: everyone must respect the God of Daniel, because he is the only God who can deliver like this. Guys, a pagan king just became a missionary for the God of Israel. That's not just faith, that's faith that moves mountains, changes empires, and transforms entire civilizations. So here's what this story is really about. It's not just about Daniel being brave or God being powerful. It's about the kind of faith that changes everything. The kind of relationship with God that makes facing death not just bearable, but peaceful. Because Daniel didn't just survive the lion's den, he transformed it from a place of death into a place of rest. That's what happens when you've spent 70 years pro. Daniel's story reminds us that when you build that kind of relationship with God, when you trust Him with everything, including your life, you develop a peace that doesn't make sense to everyone else. That doesn't mean you'll never face your lions. It means when you do, you'll have the kind of faith that can literally sleep in the presence of danger. So the question is, what kind of faith are you building? Are you the kind of person who would have prayed publicly in the lion's den, knowing it might cost you everything? Because that's the kind of faith that changes everything. The kind that moves empires. The kind that makes gods jealous and lions peaceful. Let me know in the comments, what lions are you facing right now? What would it look like to trust God with your biggest fear? And if this story blew your mind, wait until you hear what they don't tell you about Moses and the Red Sea. That's coming next week, and trust me, you haven't heard this version before. Peace out, and may your faith be as unshakable as Daniel's.